Greetings, Onion Slice, and in this video I will be reviewing Tormented Souls 2. As I'm recording this video, I have completed Tormented Souls 2 entirely, and I have watched every single cutscene, I have read every single dialogue, I have read every single document, and I have experienced the full story with the true ending. It took me one playthrough. So, one playthrough will take you about 10 to 15 hours blindly if you don't know anything prior to playing the game. Now, I got early access to Tormented Souls 2 thanks to PCube Interactive and the developers of the game, so thank you so much for sending me an early copy. So I've had 7 days to really take it all in and immerse myself in Tormented Souls 2. In fact, I have a full playthrough on my channel coming out very soon, so don't forget to subscribe and check that out in my videos. Now, I wanna also remind you that this is early footage of the game, which means that things will most likely change in the future, they will improve, and perhaps there will be bug fixes and balances throughout the story of this game. But currently, I will be reviewing an early build of Tormented Souls 2. Now, I will be dividing this review in two parts, one that is short and easy and one that goes a little bit more in depth. So the short and easy answer to how is Tormented Souls and is it good? The answer is, if you like the first game, you will like Tormented Souls 2. If you've never played Tormented Souls before and this is your first time playing the game, you will probably find it a little bit difficult to get into. Now, in case you don't know anything about Tormented Souls in general, Tormented Souls is a retro survival horror inspired game that features fixed camera angles, limited resources, puzzles, and gameplay very similar to Resident Evil, Silent Hill, and the old school survival horror games that, we've all experienced at this point. If I were to compare Tormented Souls to an existing game, it would be Resident Evil 1 Remake or Resident Evil 1 Remake HD Remaster. The one with Jill and Chris. So, Tormented Souls 2, how does it compare to the original game? Well, it's essentially the same game with a few gameplay changes. Now, the biggest change in Tormented Souls 2 from the original game is that you can actually move around freely with the left analog stick. So what that means is you no longer are bound to sitting still to shoot and reload. You have fluid movement if you use the left analog stick. But if you prefer the more classic approach, you can still use the D-pad. If you do switch to the D-pad, you will be able to play with tank controls, which is, the classic survival horror experience from, back in the day from the original Resident Evil games. Now, this game does have fixed camera angles, and it does run on the Unreal Engine. And the backgrounds that you see in the game are actually built into the game engine. They are not images. They're not still images like the original Resident Evil games. Of course, there will be, other things that are overlaid, but the base level design is absolutely outstanding. And I really, really, really like the level design in Tormented Souls 2. And it's the same thing with Tormented Souls 1. I really liked the level design. The Unreal Engine really does wonders for a game like this. Now, in terms of performance, the game runs perfectly on my rig on PC. I played the full game on max settings at 4K resolution. It didn't have any frame drops whatsoever. No frame drops whatsoever. None at all. I don't know if my character was taking more damage because my FPS was higher or anything like that, but it did feel like the game was a little bit harder. Like, it was a lot harder actually than the original game. Maybe it's because I'm new to it. Maybe it's because, of the FPS. I don't know if the FPS deal more damage, by the way. I'm just assuming. But anyway. So Tormented Souls 2 takes a little bit more of an action-y approach to the original Tormented Souls formula. Now, don't let that fool you. I don't mean like it's an action game. It's not. It has a little bit more fluidity in the movement, and enemies can move a little bit faster. Now, the game offers a wide variety of weapons, firearms and melee weapons. So you can use crowbar, there's a hammer, there's a nail gun, there's a submachine gun, there's a shotgun, just to name a few things. I won't spoil everything, but yeah, expect minor spoilers, no story spoilers whatsoever in this video. So the game also features multiple endings. I personally have experienced the true ending, and it was really easy to achieve. It wasn't difficult like the Silent Hill games, but it can be missed. So on your first playthrough blindly, you will most likely fail to get the true ending. You will most likely get the bad ending by default. So since there are two endings, it's the bad one and the good one. So interestingly enough though, you are able to create a save file before you do the good ending requirements and get the bad ending, because maybe for achievements, trophies, whatever, you can do that. So you don't have to play the entire game multiple times. Now, in terms of difficult puzzles, the game features very, very difficult puzzles that will probably have you look up a guide. Speaking of looking up a guide, I have a full guide with every single puzzle solution from start to finish, all files, I think, and it will be on my channel very soon. It might even be on my channel right now. Only one way to find out: subscribe and check out my videos. My videos tab on my channel. Anyway, I did record my entire first playthrough of my Tormented Souls experience, my early footage of the game. Now, speaking of early footage, the game features a lot of bugs, unfortunately. Now, I can't stress this enough. This is an early build of the game. This is like the pre-alpha. But it is the game that you will be playing on launch day. Now, I have tried to communicate with the developers, so hopefully, they will listen. And I know I can tell you 100% for sure that the people who have created this game absolutely love the game. They're very passionate. They're extremely passionate about creating this game, and it's not a matter of lazy developers. If there are bugs, is because they are a small indie company, and they're not AAA people. They are just honestly fans of survival horror games who somehow managed to create a company and develop amazing games. So keep that in mind. The game will have bugs, balance issues, and to name a few balance issues, the biggest one that is the most annoying for me currently right now is the inability to perfect dodge enemies. Now, even though you have fluidity and you can move around quickly, you're no longer bound by the tank controls only in this game anymore, enemies sometimes will be a little bit faster than you, or you will try to run around an enemy to sort of save ammo, and they will still manage to hit you or grab you. This happens very often in Tormented Souls 2. It is a game that does not have a lot of ammo as resources. You will run out of ammo in this game. Even though there are melee weapons, even if you decide to opt for, even if you opt for only using melee weapons on lesser enemies, you will most likely take damage because these enemies have very high reach or very long reach. I don't know how do you want to explain it. So if I were to change anything, would be to give Caroline, the main character, more iframes. Make her be able to dodge a little bit better. And by dodging, I don't mean like, running back. What I mean, like, tricking a zombie or enemy to come towards you and then running around it, right? That's how you do it in Resident Evil, right? I think the character should be able to do that. As it stands right now, 90% of the time you will take damage if you attempt to run past an enemy. With the lack of ammo, this becomes a problem because you're trying to save ammo and you end up having to spend ammo anyway. So the correct way of playing this game is using your nailer or whatever gun you think is good for whatever enemy you're fighting. And then once the enemy goes down, like it gets knocked down, go at it with your crowbar or whatever melee weapon you have and finish them off with your melee weapon. That way you save up, you know, an extra 5-10 bullets. So that's how I recommend you play the game. Now, in terms of story, the story is, I mean, your standard story. You know, we have a hero who goes and saves the damsel in distress, but there's also some extra lore regarding Anna, who happens to be, you know, the sister of the main character. So the story is interesting. It will not be a blockbuster. It's not the best story of 2025, but you know, it's there. It's meant to be a retro survival horror inspired game, so keep that in mind. The voice acting is not the best. There are major spelling mistakes every once in a while, but you know, there's maybe like 2 that you will notice. You probably won't notice the spelling mistakes. Now, remind you that this developing company is from Chile, and I think it's an absolutely great idea to set the game in Chile because, I mean, look at Clair Obscur Expedition 33. French developer, French setting, game of the year, right? Anyway, Tormented Souls 2 has very minor bugs that you will every once in a while find. Like if you're wearing a costume, the character will have, you know, you will see the character's head floating. Important is the gameplay to me, you know, and you know, the immersion, the overall experience. I think the animations could be a lot better, but I can tell they are all hand tracked. They don't have any mocap technology in this game, I don't think. They don't have motion capture, I don't think. It just feels like someone went and animated the mouths to be open, and they don't have actual muscles, you know, that muscle movement on the face. So I think, you know, that's being nitpicky, to be honest. It's not a big a deal. If you wanted to play a retro gaming survival horror game, most of those games are pixelated and they have terrible graphics. So I think we can look past the wacky animations and the deliberately bad voice acting. I mean, I'm not saying the voice actors are bad, but they made the voice acting feel awkward to, you know, sort of convey that old school, you know, vibe that all Resident Evil games had and other survival horror games had. Overall, I give Tormented Souls 2 a generous 7 out of 10. And I say generous because I think there are a lot of things that can be game breaking in this game. Specifically when you get to, spoiler alert, the cemetery. The cemetery is not per se a spoiler, it's an area in the game, but there is a point where you will be swarmed by zombies and, let's just say, other enemies that are very difficult to take out, and with the lack of ammo, this becomes a problem in the cemetery. The cemetery needs less enemies, absolutely less enemies. But yeah, overall, the game definitely needs some changes from the developer, some balance changes, a lot of bug fixes. It's not to the point where it's unplayable. There are just, the bugs that do happen are very minor and they will not impact your gameplay. They will perhaps make you laugh a little bit and break your immersion. Things such as, you know, there's a boss in front of you, or a mini boss, or an enemy. You run back to the elevator and stand in the elevator, and the enemy will just sit still there because it does not have the AI, you know, the artificial intelligence to understand that it can get on the elevator. Other important similar bugs in the cemetery, you can stand inside of one of the little crypts in the doorway, and enemies won't attack you because they don't have the intelligence of going into the crypt and attacking you, which honestly was fine. That was the only way I found that I was able to balance the gameplay in the cemetery, which will be probably your worst experience. I think the game does have ups and downs. There are parts where I really enjoy myself exploring and learning about the story and just the overall level design, and other parts where I felt like I just wanted it to be done. Like the second area of the game after the church or the convent can be a little bit challenging, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, I give the game a generous 7 out of 10. Do I like it better than Tormented Souls 1? I'm not entirely sure. I think I prefer Tormented Souls 1 by a little bit, but it's hard to say because Tormented Souls 2 is fresh on the mind currently. I think Tormented Souls 2, if we were to compare it to other existing games, it's very similar to Silent Hill 2, whereas Tormented Souls 1 was more on the Resident Evil 1 remake spectrum. Now, don't let that fool you, because Silent Hill 2, I don't like Silent Hill 2 that much, the gameplay itself, so the only way I'm comparing these games to this game to Silent Hill 2 is because it's a little bit more open, right? It's a little bit more open. It gives you a little bit more freedom compared to Tormented Souls 1, where it was a lot of backtracking. And Tormented Souls 2 has like the double the amount of backtracking that Tormented Souls 1 had. But this time around, you can plan ahead a little bit better, because the map does open up a little bit more than it did in Tormented Souls 1. At least that's how I felt. Tormented Souls 1 was a little bit more contained, right? It didn't have multiple locations. It had, the Wildburger Mansion and the underground area, and that's pretty much it. And, the various the other side world, and all of those locations. In Tormented Souls 2, you will go and visit many different locations, and they all have a purpose. But yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. Check out my full playthrough of Tormented Souls 2 on my channel. Subscribe with the notification bell. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about this, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.